before we were interrupted due to internet service. Living in your car is a calculated risk. In life, to get to the next step, you have to take risk. Life itself is risky. Every time you get out of bed, you get in your car, you go outside. Certainly, the biggest risk in life is just staying in bed. But risk is real. Risk can produce failure. Failure is part of life, and you have to go through that. But certainly, you don't want unnecessary failure, just like you don't want unnecessary stuff to take care of. Minimalism is getting rid of the unnecessary things so that you can focus your energy and your resources to make your life efficient and effective in figuring out what it is that inspires you, motivates you, and give you the energy to discipline yourself and do certain things you don't want to do to get where you want to get. There is a balance in life of taking risk, but mitigating unnecessary risk. Calculating the steps. There's a scripture that says, don't start to build before you calculate the cost. Thank you, ESP, for coming back. I never want to leave you guys stranded with these live feeds or with the videos. That's why I make daily video vlogs and go live daily. Why? Because when I became a YouTube creator, I was a YouTube consumer. And this is what I wanted from channels. Dedication, effort, and someone that's there. I want to listen. I still watch YouTube. I love YouTube. YouTube opened up the possibility of the nomad life for me. I grew up, there was never an RV culture in the area I grew up. And so, obviously I knew about an RV, certainly didn't know about van life or anything like that. Certainly the hippies already went through this in America in the 1970s. But living on the road while adventurous, and adventure is risk. Adventure is risk. Skydiving is risk. Bungee cord is risk. You know, what are you risking and what are you trying to gain? Are you trying to get an adrenaline high? See, what's the difference between starting a business, which is very risky? Chances are you make more money on a W-2 working for someone else. What's the difference between starting a business and skydiving? They're both risk. Well, the person who is starting a business, they want to take a higher chance and try to make money doing something maybe they love or passionate about. The skydiver wants to relieve stress by getting an adrenaline rush and doing something they enjoy to do. Are either one right or wrong? No. Just different calculations of risk. What is the reward for someone who may start a business? Well, they may make money doing something they love. What's the risk? Chances are they won't. What is the risk reward for skydiving? The reward is it'll give you an adrenaline rush. It'll give you a dream fulfillment. It'll make you happy. What's the risk? You may cause yourself serious harm. And it's a very short, quick thing that doesn't last long. You know, one thing about life is when you're an adult, you don't want someone to tell you what to do, what not to do. As an adult, and once you become a senior, you deal with seniors, your parents, or someone you know in your life, one of the last things they don't want to give up is their independence. Remember, a senior citizen was once a child. And remember, a child, out of everything, even above the toy for Christmas, they want their independence. They don't want to be told when to go to bed. A senior citizen, above everything else, even increased Social Security, does not want to be told when to go to bed, what to do, where they can go. Independence. Independence means that you get to call the shots. But with that responsibility comes a level of risk. What is the reward? Your best life? Like I say, I definitely agree that the biggest risk you take is laying in your bed and doing nothing. However, I don't promote jumping out of your bed, jumping in your car, and living in it with no plan. That's not calculated risk, that's recklessness. Calculated risk is maintaining your income, maintaining your health, and trying certain ventures, certain riskier opportunities. You live in your car maybe to mitigate some risk, to take other risks. The destitute nomad should always go see a social worker. The creative nomad should keep a job but have a creative side hustle. The relocating nomad should not overinvest on the road if they're just trying to relocate, not stay on the road. The extreme traveler should not just worry about comfort but efficiency, because much travel means you're going to be exhausting a lot of energy and resources to get places. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But remember then, efficiency is very important. What's more important, efficiency or effectiveness? I remember when I was walking in my community, in my condo, when I owned a home in New Jersey, and there was an older guy, and he said, Sam, let me ask you a question. What is more important, efficiency or effectiveness? And I thought about it for a moment. I said, well, effectiveness. Because even if you're efficient, if you don't execute what you're trying to do, who cares if you were efficient? Even if you buy an electric vehicle, a Prius, a plug-in, if you're not effective in accomplishing your goal, it doesn't matter. Effectiveness over efficiency. But don't neglect efficiency, but understand the long-term goal. Calculated risks. If you think that buying a better vehicle is going to make you a better nomad, not the case. Thank you, Cartoon Mark, for coming back. I appreciate that. Take two. I don't know anything in life that you do it on the first take. You say, well, Jay-Z used to do songs on the first take. Guys, I want to tell you, if you only had to do things once, there would never be a second album. Jay-Z thought he was going to just release one album and then retire, but he didn't do that. And thank God he didn't. He wouldn't have persevered. He said he would never lose, but he did to Nas. How do you overcome failure? Take two. Persistence beats resistance. The godly may fall 7 times, but they will get up again. But one disaster is enough to overcome the wicked. If you think you're not going to fail, then you're too arrogant. If you think that you're never going to succeed, you're too timid. If you don't do the work, you're too delusional. Calculated risk. What are we here for? None of us are going to live to 1,000. I'm still going to write that down. I still want to do a live feed. And the title of it, your title is the most important part of your channel, is that none of us are going to live to 1,000 years old. Average human lives 80 years. 20 of those years, you're growing up in someone else's house. You're adolescent. The last 20, you may be back in that same predicament. You may be in assisted living. So really, that's 40 years on both ends. But let's cut that in half because maybe that's a little exaggeration. But let's say definitely 20 years, 10 when you're very young, 10 when you're very old, are throwaways. That leaves you with 60 years. You say 60 years is a long time. Well, half your life you're going to sleep. For you psychopaths, you're going to sleep more than half your life. If you think about a 24-hour day, you're probably, average adults should sleep 6 to 8 hours a day, allow you to take naps. So that's another half of your life. That means you got 30 years to do something. Now, let's say out of 30 years, you're not going to be successful all 30 years. In baseball, you go to the Hall of Fame if you're 30% right. So out of 30 years, 70% you're probably going to strike out. So what's 30% of 30? Well, 10% of 30 would be 3, right? So 3, 6, 9. 9 years of your life, you're going to get on base. I got 9 thumbs up, 19 people watching. Out of your 80 years on this planet, 9 years will probably kick ass. And the rest, you may be getting kicked in your ass. Or sleeping. That's why management of time is calculating risk. Trying to skydive every hour of the day and not going to the gym or not doing something for your job is excessive risk that will cause you to have... Remember, what's the biggest risk of skydiving? Not just physical harm, but it's only for a small, quick reward of an adrenaline rush. Same thing as a roller coaster. People suffer through 11 months out of the year so they can take a vacation in the summer to go on a roller coaster. A roller coaster in Disney World shows you the mental state of society. That, if you're an adult, and shout out to all my adults who love Disney World. I love you. But I'm just saying psychologically, that means many people, their joy in life is going in this imaginary world with mice that talk to you, cotton candy, and roller coasters. Now, Erin is living in her van because she got mice in her house. She don't need to go to Disney World. Most of your life, mice are going to be living in your house. You're not going to be at Disneyland having fun with mice. What are we talking about? Calculating risk is understanding the efficiency of life, the amount of time you really have in life, focusing your energy and your resources to narrow your target. Because you got small windows of opportunity to do things in life. Don't rush into any opportunity. Rushing causes you to lose money, lose your mental health, but I've had to rush, and you will have to rush to go through the pain to get the experience. You don't have a child without birth pains. And for me, we're not going to talk about children. You guys know how I feel about them. Teach their own. For some people, having a child, they want to take the risk. And I don't begrudge them for that. I respect everyone has a different dream. I just want people to always think about that. That's a serious thing to bring another life into this world. But you say to yourself, other than being young and hormonal, why would someone bring a life into this world? Well, what is the risk and reward? Let's talk about that. Calculated risk. Well, to have a baby, number one, is very risky physically for the mother, financially, very risky for everyone involved, because having a kid is the most expensive thing you do before buy a house or RV. What is the reward? Well, for some people, it is the companionship. It is the unexplainable desire within them to create a family, to create a lifestyle that speaks to their desires. So how do you calculate that? Well, do you have a support system in place? Do you have a family support, financial support? Do you have yourself somewhat together to sustain another life? Now, even if you don't, God may still give you the grace, okay? Because I know plenty of people, even I can look at my own life at times, that you look at and you say how parents were able to raise children. It's a miracle. But however, you also live through life enough, you say, look, some of it, wasn't a miracle, it was a mess. You got to say both. Let us be thankful for our good parents, even the parents we don't speak to anymore. I've been through that. Not all parents are good. Not all kids are good. Everything's different. There's no guarantees in life. Like I said, I could have sold my house, lived in my car, and got into a severe accident the next day. It can happen tonight. We can't avoid risk. All we can do is calculate it. What's your exit strategy? Every risk, you should understand your exit strategy. What's worst case maybe? What's best case? Legal obligations, non-legal, ethical, moral obligations, emotional liability. You buy a stock, you're calculating risk. You buy an RV, you're calculating depreciation. You're calculating gas. You're calculating camping fees. You buy a new car, you're calculating monthly payments. You're calculating new car insurance quotes. No one should build without calculating the cost. Click the thumbs up if you agree with that. No one should build without first calculating the cost. Always get a quote for home insurance before you buy the home. Always estimate your utility bills based on the square footage of your house and type of heating and cooling. Always know the logistical issues with having a bigger vehicle. Always know that an efficient vehicle that is mainly parked is a waste, because the whole purpose it has efficiency is to move around a lot. Remember, a big vehicle may not be designed to move around a lot, but to provide more room and capacity. Everything is made for a certain type of risk. You were made with an individual fingerprint with certain skill set for a certain level of your risk-taking in life. I remember watching I, Robot. I believe that was the name of the movie with Will Smith. I love robot movies. I want to be a robot. And the robot, at a certain point in the movie, was trying to save society or help Will Smith. And the robot had to reach into this frozen contraption to grab like the magical thing that would save the day. And his arm, the robot's arm, was built with like titanium freeze-proof steel. And it was at that moment the robot said, "This is why my creator," the movie was somewhat about the person who created the first like iRobot. He goes, "This is why my creator must have made my arm like this." And so you have a certain personality not to take care of things that don't inspire you. But you have a certain personality not to live below your potential. See, there's a difference between avoiding unnecessary stress and avoiding all stress. Because you can't avoid stress. And if you try, let's say you take a nap. Let's say you don't wake up on time. Let's say you don't go to work. You don't avoid stress. You make your life more stressful. You know it. Mitigate risk. Don't avoid risk. With that being said, let's go to the live comments. Thank you for all my members and everyone who came back in. This is the second live feed tonight, part 2. Part 1, I had bad Wi-Fi. I could have gave up. Said I don't need to stress. I could have made a bad delivery on DoorDash and got 1 bad rating and said I'll never deliver again. I could have showed up at a construction job and said I hate this, I'm never going back. I've been through all those scenarios, and in each one, I showed back up. If you don't get that, then it's going to be hard to calculate anything else, because that's your biggest job in life. Showing up. ESP. Yeah, he's back. Yes. Gotta do Mark. Take 2. Here we go. Banging it. Hal. Damn. I had a good comment. Retype and forgive me. I know I lost the reception on the other one. I know Jonathan gave me a super chat from Australia. Shout out to you. He goes, he had a good comment. I missed everything you said. Sorry. Hal. Glad you're back. Glad to be back. Cartoon Mark. Inspirational homeowner. Come back to the dark side, Sam. Very small house, though. You will reinvent yourself. Good comment. Why? Because remember, guys, I didn't sell my house out of desperation. I sold my house with a purpose. Like iRobot. To get to Florida. To cut my bills in half. To cut my square footage in half. To live below my means, but up to my potential by the beach. You can go back to my earliest videos, and that is the same thing I've been saying. Now, I have also not rushed and still not rushing. Because I don't have house fever. I don't have coochie fever. Jack Burris has got that equity fever, $199. Need some keyboards, brother. Someone get Joe Biden on the phone. Because inflation is high, but Jack Burris says, let it come because I got a house. But I do have empathy on those who don't have a house and don't have money in the stock market, because that is something in society we still have to figure out. Now, we can't just give all lazy people money. We've already tried that during the pandemic, and they're now getting evicted because they had all that time and they didn't do anything. So I know there's certain people, for whatever reason, they just don't get it. But I do believe, like ESP in Alaska, she gets a dividend off the oil profits of the oil companies in Alaska. We got to give everyone who's a United States citizen a percentage dividend off stock market gains to give a unity in society. And I don't believe we should give everyone home ownership, because we tried that in 2008 and it was a disaster. And people, if you're in a tough financial situation, you don't need more responsibility. And if you're destitute, go see a social worker, get a subsidized house, subsidized apartment. You say, well, the list is too long. We'll follow up. But I'm not against, though. We got to improve that. So what should we do? Guys, most of the country is barren land. Most of Florida is barren land. Other than the beach, guys, I can go inland. I can show you miles. I already did videos of miles of country, nothing land. Build some of that land. Spread out the subsidized housing. Don't put people in a housing project where that's the worst design. You cannot put a bunch of poor people together, because they're not going to be able to lean to others to build relationships to advance themselves. How do you advance yourself in life? You build relationships, you get to know people, and you got to be around diversity. Economically, religiously, morally, you have to learn diversity. So putting a bunch of people that are not diverse economically or in any other way together is not healthy. You have to use the vast land that we have in America. and spread out people. You say, well, they've already tried that in Daytona Beach. They did. Tracy, thank you for the thumbs up and a super chat. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for your positive comments. Now, in Daytona Beach, guys, they have a major homeless problem. They've tried to address it over the years. 2 years ago or so, they built a state-of-the-art homeless shelter on the west side of I-95 in Daytona Beach area. But what they found is they can't get the homeless to come there. They want to stay by the beach. And they don't want to check into social services because they want to do drugs. They want to drink alcohol and be out as late as they want. So even if you give people houses, and even if you put it in the middle of nowhere and there's no more projects, you can't make people live how you want them to live. And that is the essence of what Jesus meant when he said there will always be the poor among you. And not just financially, but emotionally, mentally. That doesn't mean we neglect trying to make society better. Thank God humans over the years have made society better. If you don't believe that, look at 2021, verse 1721. In every first world country, I would say 99.9% of people did one thing today: throw out food. If you throw out food today, that means you're rich enough to not care about wasting food. So, life is not about home equity, per se. Not a bad thing. Life is not about car depreciation, per se. It's about life equity. What is life equity? No matter what government principles are put in place, and I just spoke on some specifically, no one can make you get the most out of your life. All they can do is create an environment that may incentivize home ownership or business entrepreneurship or social programs. But you, as an individual, if you're going to have certain freedom, you have to decide how you calculate your risk, and when you fail, how to have a foundation to sustain yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, financially, etc. I know enough now as a 41-year-old man who's lived in a house, who's lived in a car, who's lived in abundance, who's lived in scarcity, who's been obese, who's been anorexic, who's been private, who's been public. I could tell you guys, all that is kind of just personal choice. Again, I reference no rush. I'm not delusional where I thought that if I sell my house and I buy an RV, I'd change my life. I knew that by selling my house and living in my car, I was just mitigating some risk and liability to go after what I wanted, which was a better location, more financial freedom, less materialism. If I get out of living in a car, buy a home base, I'm just reallocating assets, creating stability, and pivoting to that which I set off to. There's parts of living in a car that are risk. There's parts of owning a house that are risk. There's parts that are renting that are risk. You can't avoid risk. You have to ask yourself, what is your calculation for your individual circumstance? And what part of the journey are you at? What are you trying to accomplish? Never start living in your car if you don't have a purpose. If you're doing it because you're destitute, go see a social worker. If you're doing it because you want to get ahead, pick up a side hustle, take the promotion. If you're doing it because you want to relocate, the hardest part is going to be to move away from the familiar area you know and the familiar friends and family. Never forget it. When I go visit my mom every year, what do I always tell you guys when I get ready to leave? It's very hard to leave. You can have the remote job. You can have the experience. You can have the tenacity. You can have the health. Emotionally, It may be harder than you think to calculate the emotional hurdle that you have to go over to relocate. Thank you again, Jack. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Hal. Thank you, ESP. Thank you for the 32 people watching. I hope these words are helping you. One of the things that I struggle with in YouTube sometimes, I know overall I believe I deliver a good message, but I know that the pain that exists amongst people. And I say I hope I help more than I hurt. I'm sure there's sometimes I hurt, but remember the scriptures. The blows of a friend can be trusted, but the kisses of an enemy are deadly. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean I'm always right. That doesn't mean I don't have to apologize sometimes. That doesn't mean all that. I understand. But as 5 years has passed living in my car, being on YouTube, I said to myself, has the risk been worth it? And the answer is yes. Why? Because I maintained good habits and an income, picked up side income, traveled around to the areas I wanted to, pinpointed locations, pinpointed things, failed, got back up, and kept repeating that until I persevered. And pandemics, life circumstance, and through it all, you show up. Do any of us succeed? Oh, look, guys, success like failure, everything's fleeting. But I believe that you can make your life better through effort and through the grace of God. I can't guarantee anything, though, even for myself. You say, well, all I can tell you is some principles that are rooted in wisdom, common sense, that help. Don't guarantee. Doug, hello, Sam, and all. Just got off work. Great to have you. Good job. Sitting in my car in a parking lot. Me too. By PetSmart, not me. And idolatry. I ain't mad at that. Love to you, brother. Doug, I appreciate your positive attitude and work ethic. Doug's living in an apartment, cheap apartment, under $500 per month, working and trying to get ahead in life. And he's got a positive attitude. I want to tell you, one of the worst things you can do in life is surround yourself with people who choose not to work. I don't know, not everyone should work a regular job. And not everyone's able to work. There's some disabilities. And some people are seniors and some people worked and accumulated money where they don't have to work. But I'm saying if someone isn't productive or someone hasn't been productive in their life and they don't encourage productivity, I don't know how they're going to be a blessing in your life. Because when you try to be productive, they're not going to like it. And when someone doesn't like productivity, that means they like idleness, laziness. And when someone likes that, that is something that's going to make your risk higher, your quality of life lower, your money lower, your confidence lower, your drug use higher, idle time, your mental health worse, your relationships worse. You're working harder not to work, making your life harder. Thank God for direct deposit day. Tomorrow's Friday. Many people will get a direct deposit. What is a direct deposit? It's a reward system for people who showed up and took a risk in taking a job. And they did something productive that serves some function in society. And there's many functions in society. Construction worker, postman, stripper, doctor, mechanic, food delivery, cashier, IT, utility tracer, data entry, caretaker, dog walker, manufacturer, therapist, entertainer. What would life be if there was no one doing anything productive? It'd be a game of duck, duck, goose, where a bunch of people sitting in a circle create a game to entertain themselves for an hour. That's adolescence. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, reasoned as a child. When I became an adult, I put away childish things. Don't lose your don't lose your ability to have fun and laugh. You guys know I'm able to do that. But don't be so damn immature that you never mature. What are we talking about tonight? Taking a risk, a calculated one, to live your best life. For me, one of the things I did was live in a car. But it wasn't the only thing. If living in the car was the only risk I take, my risk would be too high, my reward would be too low. Alice from Pennsylvania, I can't believe you still watch. You've been more than good to me. You've been a member. I can't believe how good Alice has been to me, and she never comes here. I mean, you don't ask for anything. Looking good, Sam. Thank you. Alice, you know, as an entertainer, I'm almost like a stripper. I got to have some sex appeal. Even though I want to tell you this, Alice, I thank you. I love you. Pennsylvania. I know it's getting cold. Remember, winter doesn't start till December 20th. Hurricane season just ended, but remember, hurricane season comes again. Remember, winter comes every year. Hurricane season, everything has a season. Enjoy the seasons of your life. Merry Christmas to you also. And to everyone out there, whatever you celebrate. Thank you, Alice. I love to see Christmas lights. You say, Inspirational Nomad, if you don't live in a car and you buy a home base, will you have Christmas lights? I highly doubt it, but you never know. Now, I saw someone when I first started living in my car, I was watching YouTube. She had Christmas. She was from Newark, New Jersey. She had Christmas lights in her car. I don't think she had a job, but she had a decorated car. I enjoy looking at Christmas lights, even though I don't put them up. So you say, as a minimalist, why should I put up Christmas lights? Well, I don't, but I still admire those who that's their thing. What my man Doug say? Admire, don't acquire. Thank you again, Alice, Tracy, Jack, Doug, ESP, Cartoon Mark, Hal. Anyone else leave a comment? Let's go. We're in part 2. The first one got cut off, but we showed up again. Reliability mitigates risk. I want to say that again because the Wi-Fi is so good and it's such a good message. Reliability mitigates risk and maximizes reward. Consistent, small, incremental positives throughout the day, throughout your daily routine, throughout your life, mitigate risk. What's the risk of not having a house? Well, I got no electricity. My laptop just went out. But I got an inverter pack. So, I'm going to plug in my charger. Bear with me. Living in a car, no electricity. I'm off the grid, guys. Leave a comment if you got electricity. Charles! Oh, no, I missed a comment. Doug, that was a very cozy road trek. Now, I love those road treks that are on the Chevy chassis. I wish they still made them like that, but now everything's on a Dodge chassis. I like the Dodge chassis. I like the Solace Pocket. But I did like those Chevy chassis. But that is a lot of money. That video I did today of that used road track, a 2015, $90,000 for a 6-year-old used car. I don't care if it's a van or not. Now I would get if I was a single nomad and I wanted to stay on the road, I would get the Solus Pocket. And that's a consideration for me even at this time. Look at how this lighting now hits my face like this. I'm just going to leave it like this. That's very exciting. Give you guys something to look at. Even though I know I don't look as sexy. Because, you need a little bit of a dark feed. But this makes me look entertaining. Let me go back to these live comments on my laptop. If you're a YouTube creator, do your live feed with your phone and look at the comments through your laptop. Never forget it. Thank God no more dislikes, guys. I can't even see it. I know there had to be some people hitting that dislike, even that weren't trolls when I had bad Wi-Fi. And now I can't even see that. Thank God for that. I love that. Very positive, healthy environment now. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you again, Jack, Tracy, Alice. Let's go back to these comments. Doug was liking that road trip. Thank you for doing the RV videos. Now, the one thing, if I get a home base and keep a regular car, those RV reviews are going to keep going. Because I got to drive far away to get those RV reviews. If I get a Class B, you ain't getting no more damn RV reviews. Why? Shit. I ain't driving no $100,000 RV all over Florida to try to get you RV reviews. So that's a calculated risk that I consider with regards to YouTube content. Charles, Sam, looks like the Church of Scientology is buying up a bunch of Clearwater real estate. Well, the headquarters of Scientology has always been in Clearwater. So I'm not surprised. Remember, though, the person who created Scientology was mentally disturbed, I think clinically. But many people in religion, and I would say all religions, probably have a level of mental illness. Because even me, I look back at certain times in my church days, there was a level of delusion. But I don't want to mock it because all of it is not wrong. And you need a level of imagination. You could say Walt Disney was delusional. You got to balance faith, supernatural, spiritual, and practical. And that takes maturity. That's got to go through a series of the fire refining the soul. Good comment, Charles. Charles, I think Grant Cardone is a Scientologist too. He is. I saw him on a Vlad TV interview. Tom Cruise is the most famous Scientologist. Then Grant Cardone, a few others. That girl from Charles in Charge or something like that. She was one Scientology now. What was a sitcom she was from? King of Queens. She was one Scientology. Now she's not. Yeah, Scientology. I don't know all their principles though. Something like you can master your mind and go to like these different levels of knowledge and like some type of like alien mindset. I don't know. But every religion, even Christianity, you can pull out things that make it seem delusional. And to some extent it is. So look, everything is within the context and the interpreter. And many things can be used to improve you. Yeah, that's it, ESP. Leah Rima, something like that. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, Cartoon Mark, you see me? Looking spooky? Yeah. But I'm very peaceful. I like this lighting. This lighting make me look good. At least in a crazy, pretty fun way. Alice was in Atlanta for Thanksgiving 3 days. How'd you like it? Ready to move south. Once you go south, you never go back. Once you come South Florida, you become an elitist. But there's a lot of economic opportunity in Atlanta, Georgia, no doubt. They've definitely developed. So, love to you, Alice. And I would tell you, I know you live in Pennsylvania. I grew up in New Jersey, not far from Pennsylvania. And what I could tell you is I know New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, we're all in this bubble. Northeast, even you could say Maryland, D.C., Virginia. We're in this bubble, Northeast bubble. A lot of economic opportunity, great diversity. Everything has rich and poor. Everything has middle. But what I can tell you is, thank God you live in Pennsylvania, not a foreign land that doesn't have resources. But thank God that you have the ability to change states based on taking a calculated risk for what's your best life. Now, how do you calculate a risk to move locations? Well, visit several times. Figure out how you can produce an income there and be realistic on what your new life would look like. Don't rush into reckless, uncalculated risk. Jesus said, before you build a house, calculate the risk. We have to take risk in life or we get nowhere, but we must mitigate risk and maximize reward potential. Because I want people to be able to relocate where they're inspired, but also produce an income, also maintain a good, healthy habit and way of life. Remember, where you live is an enhancement of your habits. Let's continue to read. Alice says she is 61 years old. Shout out to you. And needs sunny, warm weather. Vitamin D is the fountain of youth. The fountain of youth is in St. Augustine, Florida. And vitamin D, which comes from the sun, major source of vitamin D, gives you encouragement, inspiration. One of the reasons I want to move from New Jersey to Florida was sun, warm weather, being able to go outdoors all year long. You say, I can't go outdoors in the summer. Some people don't like the Florida heat in the summer. I don't mind it as long as there's no hurricane. But I lived through Hurricane Sandy in New Jersey. And if I got to live through a hurricane in New Jersey, I better get all year round warm weather. Because that's like saying, oh, I want you to raise my kids, but I ain't giving you the coochie. What? Shit. That don't sound like a calculated risk to me. It sounds like I'm taking all the risk. You getting all the reward. Always have to calculate risk. Cartoon Mark. Yeah, that light's crazy. Spooky. Ghost emoji. I'm a robot. Give me a robot emoji. ESP. Leah Rhyme. Yep, good job. Cartoon Mark. Gilf juice awaits in PSL. I want to tell you, there's some gilfs out here looking very good. And what I want to tell you is gilf juice for the win. The Clearwater, Florida is Mecca for Scientology. I agree. Close to Tampa, I believe. Yes, it is. And Charles is from Tampa. Alice, still need medical marijuana fix. I believe Florida has medical marijuana and even recreational. I'm not sure about Georgia. Check into that. But you're 61 and 62. You're technically able to collect Social Security if you're not already on it. So you are a senior citizen, pretty much. So now is the time to figure out how you live on your fixed income. Oh my God, Lisa Strawn, $20, bright orange goals with the guy with the wide ass surfing to his best life. That super sticker matches my soul tonight. Lisa, you nailed it. Alice, we love you. I want you to go after your goals, calculated risk. You say, I failed. I don't have any goals anymore. I've been there. That's a tough. What do? Go for a walk and keep showing up. I totally empathize with the person that has given up on goals. I let myself go physically and mentally. I got to a place where I was like, but I kept showing up. That's my saving grace. Lisa said, sold my Corolla. Did you? What'd you get, Lisa? Would you get to replace it? Get no vehicle? Or another vehicle? Thank you again, Lisa. Thank you, Alice. Alice, it's your time now. Like I said, the average human lives 80 years. If you're 61, go after it responsibly. Do the research, though. Lisa, want to move into something bigger. That's understandable. It's a calculated risk. You lose efficiency, but you gain comfort. Efficiency is only needed if you're going to move around a lot for a specific reason that gives you a reward. When you're first living in your car, don't invest in a new car until you know you like the lifestyle. If you say, well, for me, I need a bigger car to start living in my car, everyone's different. As long as you've calculated the risk on the financial liability and your exit strategy. One thing I struggled with getting a Class B or a big van when I was first getting into car living was, if I decide to go back to a regular conforming life in a house or an apartment, what am I going to do with this van or RV, because you can't always park them in any community. And that's why I've been slow to do anything. Don't rush. Avoid rushing mitigates risk. Lisa says she's lived. Oh, here we go. Okay. So you've lived in the Corolla for 2 months, and now you're in an Airbnb. Interesting. One of the first videos I did about the nomadic life was that living in your car is like having a baby. You don't really know if you're going to be able to carry the baby until the first trimester. A trimester is the first 3-month period when a woman is pregnant. It is at that time that she is the most vulnerable, high risk to lose the baby. And that's why many women will not tell other people they're pregnant until after the first trimester. I did not go on YouTube and announce I was living in my car till after 6 months already living in my car. I did not tell anyone other than 1 or 2 people that I sold my house and I was living in my car. Why? I was in the first trimester. A lot of risk. And so once you get past 3 months, then you know, well, maybe I am meant to be a nomad, or I like being a nomad. If you've hit 3 months and you already are having issues, I'm not saying that you can't reinvent and pivot, because you may need a different vehicle. But I want you to know that you have to calculate the risk of a new vehicle and what your probability is to actually utilize that on the road. Good job, Lisa. Love to you, and thank you for sharing. Aaron's in the building. Aaron, what's going on? Hey, all. Oh, sorry, hear this. Horrible day here. I'm sorry. But I'm grateful for all my blessings in my life. I appreciate your positive attitude. So whatever. Hope you guys are good. Aaron, I shouted you out in my part 1 of this live feed. I love you, Aaron. We love you. I'm thankful for you. I appreciate that even though you went through a bad day, you still have a positive attitude. I'm going to keep my mouth shut now. Why? Because when someone has a bad day, they just want to know you love them, and then shut up. Just give her your space. Michelle. Hey, Aaron. Sam and everyone. We love you, Michelle. Aaron says hello, Michelle. I want to tell Michelle, Aaron, Lisa, Alice, Doug, Cartoon Mark, ESP, my man, Charles, Doug with the wiseness, Tracy, Jack Burse, my man, Hal, everyone watching me on this part 2, I want to say thank you. When you're totally lost for words, say thank you and maybe even give an encouraging word. And then shut up. Why? Because I guess there is something to the saying where if you got nothing good to say, don't say it at all. Certainly you have to vent, though. You have to let out your frustrations. I do that, and I empathize with that. Life is hard enough, and that's why I really enjoyed selling my house and getting in my car, because it didn't make my life harder. It made my life better. I had less responsibility, but I maintained a job and had exit strategies, because I knew that living in my car won't necessarily make anything better. It's just mitigating some risk with liability and responsibility, giving me more flexibility and more opportunity to take calculated risk. But what stabilized me during that volatile period was a job, picking up a side hustle, and keeping overall good habits. And the grace of God, I always acknowledge it. Even when I curse God, I got to acknowledge. I mean, I'm thankful. I know people, I know everyone has their own issues. I searched for something else to tell you in my soul tonight, but I think I am empty. And at the end of the day, whatever life you choose to live, sometimes it's going to be good, sometimes bad. Sometimes you have to totally reinvent yourself. You have to pivot. You got to get rid of everything and be more intentional about everything. You can never get rid of certain foundational things that stabilize you so that you can take calculated risk. My heart and my prayers go out to everyone who is desperate and you have to take excessive risk. You say, why do poor people play the lottery? The odds are so low. Well, when you're desperate, I've been there. You hit big. You know, praying that hard 8 hits on the crap table is it tells you the risk reward. Like, I don't know what the hard 8 was in Atlantic City, 8-1 odds. Shout out to my man. I know he's in Florida now. We used to go to Atlantic City together, shoot craps. We used to go to Atlantic City, me and my friend I grew up with. I think he's in Florida now. Shout out to him. And we used to, on the weekends and stuff, we used to go to Atlantic City, shoot craps. And some of the payouts, were on the most risky things. But the reason they pay out so high is because they have such a high chance of failure. And you say, yeah, well, that's why I'm taking a risk. I need to get, and what I can tell you is most times we left Atlantic City, we left broke. Over 90% of the times. Well, we lost. Let's just say that. So Atlantic City and gambling is just excessive risk. Certain investments or certain lifestyles are risk, but if they're calculated, they're not gambling, but they are still risk. Risk is real. If you don't think risk is real, you've never been to a casino. If you don't think risk is real, you've never day traded. If you don't think risk is real, you've never dated. If you don't think that a mature person learns through their experience in taking excessive risk to be a little bit more intentional with calculated risk, you don't understand maturity. However, none of us, including me, the wisest person, no matter who it is, none of us can ever claim that we have figured out life where we cannot get totally crushed. And so does that scare me? Well, I've struggled with that. At times it really did scare me. But then I've gotten to a certain level of maturity. I said, well, if I do everything in order as best I can, and I take calculated risk, even if I end up with totally nothing, what else can you do? Like Steve Jobs says, you become awakened once you realize you're already naked. Steve Jobs he succeeded in a lot of risk, but he still died. None of us lived to 1,000. I hope my message helped you in some way tonight. I apologize for part 1 that may have been a little choppy on the Wi-Fi. I pray for you. I hope you will pray for me because I believe in putting in the work, but I still believe in prayer. I still curse God, so I don't want to be a hypocrite, but I also praise God. I also give thanks to God. I don't want to be someone who doesn't share that boldly. But I understand that depending on your life circumstance, you may be in a different place, and I don't judge that. Everyone's different. I hope that if you had a bad day like Aaron and anyone else, I hope that you have a better night, or at least you get through the day. When you have a bad day, get through the day. When you have a good day, don't get too boastful. Just get through the day. If you want to go to a new area like Alice, calculate your risk before you build. If you're like Lisa and you're trying to figure out your nomadic journey or Airbnb journey, remember, stay flexible. Know your exit strategies. Don't get overwhelmed. When you're in the beginning of anything, including living in your car or living in a house, or, because I'll say both about living in a car and living in a house. In the beginning, it's hardest. When you first buy a house, you got to settle into all the new responsibilities. But once you settle in long term, Yeah, it's manageable if you buy somewhat reasonable, below your means, enough, not too much square footage. Same thing with living in your car. When you first start living in your car, you don't have any responsibility, but you got to manage where you park. You got to figure that out. Like my first month living in my car, I got a knock on the door. I was going all over the place. Like, man, what the fuck? But I was still in, but it's scary. It gets better for some, not for all. Everyone's different. Everyone's not meant to do everything everyone else does. Charles, hey Sam, have you thought about taking some good clips from your live stream and making them YouTube shorts? Excellent comment. When I first started doing live feeds, I did eventually start doing YouTube clips like Joe Rogan. And I will take your advice and revisit that, because I do agree to your wise point that if I'm giving an hour of content, probably only 10 to 20 minutes is the real gems. And it's not always in the beginning, it's not always in the middle, always in the end, it's mixed. And so to take those gems out and drop them in individual clips will help my channel grow to another level. I'll do that. I'll take that advice. And that's what I tell you, out of hour live feed, probably only 10 to 15 minutes somewhere sprinkled in is the real gems. Out of your 80 years alive, probably only got about 10 years that you're really doing what you want to do. There is a huge inefficiency in most of our days, most of our lives. Living in a car, living simple, at least gets rid of some of the inefficiency, so that even though we're still going to have a lot of wasted time in life, the time that we do have is quality time. Quality time with your mother. Quality time with your children. Quality time with your side hustle. Quality time with yourself. Charles, I bet you can make some good ones. I receive that wise counsel. You're a very wise man. I tell you that, Charles. I tell you, your mindset, you're going to figure out you already figured out the algorithm of success, but you're going to get even better. Guys and girls, I hope I helped. I want to thank you again. I'll see you in the next video. Come to the light. Does that mean you should sell your house and live in your car? You got to answer that. Come to the light. Does that mean you should stop living in a car, go into a house? You got to answer that. Come to the light. What should you do? Only you can answer that. Charles, YouTube shorts are the only thing that's getting my channel growth towards meeting the monetization requirements. Remember, YouTube is like a boxing match. You're not going to win on a Mike Tyson knockout. Now, some people you may see a nomad, a female nomad living in a van with a bikini, taking a shower, and she did one video and it got millions of views. Mike Tyson is the exception, not the rule. So you have to remember, YouTube, you got to give it a three-piece. You got to give it a combination. You got to have a jab, which is a consistent upload. You got to have a right blow to the body, okay, which is maybe a live stream a day or a week or twice a week. You got to have the left hook, which is a YouTube short, a structured playlist. And the uppercut is a properly titled video that has the search engine components of an RV review, a tutorial, not a personal thought. People search. I got one video has almost reached 1 million views. It was an RV review. How does it get to? Well, the title of the RV and the price and the year is what people search for. CAD tutorial for dummies. That's your uppercut. Living in a van as a solo female, uppercut. But if you have that, but you don't have the jab, you don't have the body blow, you don't have the consistent uploads, you don't have the live feeds, if you don't have that, remember, when you swing with an uppercut, it's a calculated risk that you're going to knock them out. But the vulnerability is to knock them out, you got to open yourself up to a blow. Wasted time on YouTube. Starting your channel, stopping it. Not properly titled videos. Not content centered around some individual preference, some for the masses, and some structure to the creativity. Charles, you have all the components. You are Rocky. I know you love Rocky like I love the movies. You've got all the components. I am the old trainer. And I'm telling you, Rocco, Drago's going to knock you out. And you're telling me that through your tenacity, because passion will get you further, even more than some of these technical things I just referenced. Tenacity, passion. Some things on my channel have not been technically sound, but it is the passion that has persevered through some of the algorithm of success. And I know you understand that because I look at your paintings on your wall. I look at your mindset in your videos. I love your rants. Very good rants. Even though they're not rants, they're more like long thought videos in your car or talking or something. Love to you, brother. Keep doing your thing. You're going to figure it out. Twister fire emoji. I want to tell you, Twister. By now, you're probably 2 weeks working at Starbucks. You know what a grande is. You know what a venti is. You know what a tall is. The first day I walked into Starbucks, I said, let me get a large coffee. They said, we don't have large. I said, what the fuck is this? Let me go back to Dunkin' Donuts. The first day you go to a new job, the first day you get a promotion, you said, what the fuck is this software? I don't know. What the fuck is this pipe bender? Everyone who quits on their first day destroys their life. They take too much risk. Because if you stay on the same job for 6 months, 18 months, you know, venti, macalata, frappe, you're over there like Tom Cruise behind a Starbucks thing, like in the movie Cocktail, and you serving up all the drinks. When you stay on the construction site and you're bending EMT pipe for 18 months, you're bending 90s, you're bending offsets, you ain't even using a tape measure. When you've been on YouTube for 5 years, you're uploading RV reviews, you got 1 million views on this, you got 20,000 views on that. You're responding to every comment. When you first go live, every troll knocking you up, you don't know what to do, you don't know how to do this, how to do that. If you give up too early, you might as well go back to Dunkin' Donuts, to your familiar large coffee. There's some people say, oh, thank God I'm back in Dunkin' Donuts where a large coffee is a large coffee. Oh, thank God I'm back to this job where it's not confusing. I'm an assembly person. I just do whatever is simple. Thank God I went back to the person I knew in high school because they know me, I know them. The Israelites wanted to go back to Egypt because they preferred to be in bondage over going to a new land that was unfamiliar. And that's not religious. That's a practical message I want to share with you. ESP, don't break out that bikini. Break out. Well, you're going to have to break out his shadow. Okay. Because, look, for most people, the only way to connect with your audience is you got to make yourself somewhat vulnerable. And there's no way you're going to win a fight and you don't show your face. It's just you. Now, the only way you can get around that is if you did some tutorials, you did some informational videos that do not show your face, and there are ways to do that. But I would say, ESP, if you do have a goal, and I look at your videos, I see that you intentionally say, subscribe, get me to 1,000 subscribers. And the guys, if you're not subscribed to ESP, subscribe. Let's get her up to 1,000. She's at about 140. But I want to tell you, ESP, every video you should have right now should be living in your, living in your van, solo female, / whatever the topic is. Because people search for that. They don't search for Dairy Queen cold weather blanket. You got to make your video title searchable so that you get into the algorithm of recommended videos. Every video, if you're living in a car, every video, if especially in the beginning of your channel, if that's what's centered around, should be living in a van, solo female, how to shop at Dollar Tree, whatever. That'll get you a lot of views. Living in a car, living in a van, solo female on a budget. Get you a lot of views. Living in a van, solo female in Alaska. A lot of views. You say, I'm Twister. I just worked at Starbucks. How do I do my video title? First day working at Starbucks. What do I think? Now, again, to ESP and to Twister and every YouTube creator, your biggest risk on YouTube is this, showing your face. But it has to be a calculated risk. So how do you calculate it? You have to have enough credentials or enough money in savings, enough other options that you can take that calculated risk. But if you don't take the calculated risk, you're never going to produce YouTube or anything else into a side thing. So, like, again, if you never swing at your opponent, you're never going to win the fight, no matter how good of a defender you are. But if you're always swinging and you don't have any defense, you took too much risk. What are we talking about, calculated risk? David, most people have given up by the age of 30. Well, I understand that. I've been there. I tell you, keep going. At 30, I was obese. At 30, I was still in debt. My dog was on the verge of dying, and I was going through a breakup. Keep showing up. You'll live to 40. On odds, chances are you're going to live to 40. So if you know odds are you're going to live another 10 years at least, keep showing up. Why? Because if you don't show up, you make your life harder at 40. You say, I can't see myself 10 years from now. Well, look at yourself when you were 20. You can see yourself 10 years from now. Look at yourself 10 years ago. Keep showing up. That's my ultimate message. Twista, I know you're almost finishing up the live stream. We're in overtime, brother. Love to you, man. We show up. Okay. And we keep persevering. I love you. I'll hold my long thoughts. You share these thoughts, man. Let's do it. For later, I love you. But as always, love to you, Sam. Mutual love and respect. Reciprocation. Charles, the way I mitigate risk with showing my face is to try to stick to a wholesome content. I agree. That's an excellent comment. Charles, you're very smart. Charles, in one sense, has love you too, Christina, way less risk than me. Why? He's very calm-tempered, very much does not get into politics or contentious topics, very mild. So that's another way to go. You're not going to really offend anyone. But no matter what about offending, you got to be yourself. My risk is I talk about everything, but that's also what gives me my reward. Because I make myself vulnerable and I speak on everything, but that's just my personality. In my personal time. In my time when I'm with people, I am not this blown up figure. I mean, I'm very similar. But I get along with everyone, even different political views, different philosophies of life, because I show mutual respect, and I believe in that. When I'm in these modes of these live streams, I'm just intense, because in my soul, there is something that this is my creative soul. There's part of what I share that even though I like it as a side hustle, it's something that I'm getting out, okay? I'm painting with a brush, okay? And I paint bold. I fucking paint shit. But some people paint different. In one ways, and that's why I tell you, like, I can only give you a certain template. But everyone is an individual. And I don't want to force my views or my ways on, and vice versa. So, like I said, Charles, you got to be yourself. I would not tell you to be my energy or my way, because then you would lose yourself. There was a time when I was in the church and then I started to do sermons, I was sounding like my pastor. There was times after Tupac died that everyone sounded like Tupac. You're going to be influenced by others, and that's good. But you have to learn to do things on your own so you develop your own voice. And you only learn that through experience, through trial and error, failure and success, and the grace of God. Good comments. Christina, we love you too. Thank you for everything, Christina. You've been very gracious. We love you. Twista, love you, Christina. I agree. Guys and girls, we are getting to the end of the all-night gas station. Is it the end of living in a car? I'm not going to say that yet. Remember, no deal is done until it's done. Remember that you can go forward, but you can also go backwards. Remember, in life, you can't always go forward and never go backwards. I mean, you're not always going to win. But remember, to have consistency means you figured out a certain level of mitigation of some risk so that you have some level of consistent tax returns that show that you're a successful investor. If your tax returns show that you lose money every year, you're not an investor. You're not a business person. It doesn't mean you're not building experience to get to that point, but it means that you got to figure out a strategy in life where you're going to go through periods of negative loss. And the way to start to get out of that is one, step back and sometimes take very little to no risk. Stabilize. Then, incremental, then maybe once in a while big, and then you're going to fail, and then you got to recalculate. Risk is a moving target. Risk is a moving target. The earth is always spinning. The recalculation of risk, there's variance in life. Reassessment. Okay. All right, guys and girls. Cartoon Mark, you know what it is. PSL in your future. Gilfs for the win. Charles said, yeah, if you're not being yourself in videos, it turns into a mask that's hard to maintain. Yep. And I've been there. I mean, look, it takes time to figure out. Whether you're giving a sermon, whether you're tracing utilities, whether you're painting a paint, Charles and Cartoon Mark, you're both artists on the side. You can't tell me that when you're painting, you figure it out on your first painting every time. No, you got to keep going, Charles, 199 super chat. Sammy, in that overtime, a lot of fire emojis, brother. I want to tell you, having less things to take care of, I can spend more time creating. I want to tell you, the ultimate thing I have to do is create a quality of life where I have abundance to share. Because it is true that out of desperate times comes great creativity. The gas station bursts an energy that you can't find in a home base. You can't find in an RV, But the real message comes from, one is the gift that you're born with. Everyone has different gifts. I can't take full credit even for some gifts that you're born with. And two is from the development of those gifts, not necessarily the circumstance of your life. And if you get that, changing, adapting, reinventing yourself doesn't scare you, but it also doesn't rush you. Good to see you, Andre. Hey, Sam. Good evening. How you doing? Overall, I feel good. We're close to the weekend, brother. I hope you're doing good. Maybe you're planning your next trip. I know it's getting colder up north. Love to you and everyone up there. Great to see you tonight, and I thank you for watching, Andre. Thank you for your membership. How are you? You say Inspirational Nomad, another day with 2 live feeds. You've been on this one for over an hour and 20 minutes. How do you do it? Well, it gets easier as you build up momentum. There's been so many times on this journey I wanted to quit. And I don't believe YouTube. YouTube is a high risk, low reward. So you got to have an exit strategy. Got to have a main job, in my opinion. Not everyone has to, but And I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to quit. Now, I can tell you, though, that self-care has always been the primary message of all my journey, pretty much. So without self-care, you don't have a side hustle. I want to repeat that. Without self-care, you don't have a side hustle. You have too much risk. You are the bag. If you can't secure yourself, how can you secure your next vehicle to live in, your next house to build, your next promotion, or your next campsite? If you can't adapt, how can you go to a different area you've never been? Self-care is top priority. And sometimes self-care is pushing yourself. Self-care isn't just, I can't show up because I get too much anxiety. That's not self-care. Andre, yes, you're right. On the last 4 days, I had to wear a jacket, had a hat and overalls. Andre, brother, I empathize. I remember many days working outside in the beginning of my career, wearing 3 layers or 2 layers of Carhartts and a layer of sweats underneath, working outside in the winter in New Jersey with tools, carrying heavy equipment, working in industrial plants. And the highlight of the day was a BEC, a bacon, egg, and cheese from the Coach Roach. If you never worked construction or industrial type setting, when you got a Coach Roach that shows up to your job for lunch and for your coffee break. Guys, today, you know what I did on my coffee break? On my lunch break, I went to an elitist section of Florida, to Whole Foods. Thank you, Mama and Solomon. You know what I did 20 years ago on my lunch break? Went to the Coach Roach to get a sandwich wrapped in plastic. And I don't look down on either of them. Yeah, the Roach Coach, yeah, that's right. Cartoon Mark says, the Roach Coach lady used to give us breakfast on credit. Bless her, yeah. Yeah, I've seen that before. Good job, Cartoon Mark. I want to tell you, someone can give you opportunity, but you still got to show up. There's nothing wrong with improving your life, but you got to do what you got to do to improve it. That's why I tell you, I don't feel guilty. Now, all of us have to have some humility that there's certain blessings that we have we can't take full credit for. But I look at my life after I say that and I say, man, going through these things and doing these things gives me a peace and a confidence and an assurance that, man, willing to deliver pizza, willing to work construction, willing to then transition to corporate, blessed to get opportunities, blessed to have people help me, blessed by the grace of God. But I want to tell you that you got to show up. You got to do. Andre, most of my jobs are at water plants and sewer plants. Yep, shout to that. There's money there. I remember when I was leaving the union, I applied for a few different jobs. One was in a water treatment plant. One was in a hospital as a maintenance guy, and one was in a technology company. And I applied for all 3. The water plant one, I didn't get because I remember going on the interview and the guy looked at my resume and goes, all right, you got experience doing this, that. And he goes, tell me a little bit something about yourself. I said, well, on the weekends, I am starting to get involved in the church. At that time, I was starting to try to improve my life. I was like, on Sundays, it's tough for me to work because I am pretty much involved in the church, and I'm trying to change my life in certain ways. And he goes, oh yeah, he goes, well, I'll tell you this, working at this job gonna make you lose your religion. And I think when I said that, I don't think he looked down on it or he discriminated about it, but I think that he knew, he was smoking a cigarette, and I understand because I came from that vibe. And the other guys in the room, everyone was on some toxic shit. They were and I wasn't gonna fit in there. But I still handled myself gracefully, and I agree, I probably wouldn't have fit in. I don't even know if I would have accepted it, but I remember that you got to take those steps, man, to separate yourself and identify yourself and improve yourself. Because if not, you're going to stay at the same spot forever. Jack Burris being very gracious, up with me all night, putting in that work. Thank you, Jack. $1.99 Blue Diamond Super Chat. Cheers to you, brother. Right back to you. Enjoy listening to you. Thank you, man. Jack, you've been very gracious, brother. I love you. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Denise, kudos to you for doing that type of important environmental work at Andre. I agree. What would life be like if you went to your sink and there was no water? What if everyone got UBI and no one worked at a water plant? How would you flush your toilet? You say, I take a shit in a bag. What if there was no garbage men or garbage woman? Where would you throw your bag? Remember, if you want UBI, which I'm not against, if you want to do nothing, what would society be like if everyone did nothing? How would you get your car fixed? How would you get new tires? Who would make new tires? How would you go to CVS to get your prescription? Who would work at CVS? How would you get gas? Why would you have a gas station? Who would want to manufacture a gas station? How would you do anything? Who would build a road? How many potholes will we have? Who would want to work road work? There is a pathway to UBI. I believe it. I believe it'll be necessary. But there also is going to be necessary to have some structure for, even if you're not doing a conforming job, there's some function that you got to serve in society. If everyone did nothing but sleep and nap, you wouldn't even be watching me. There'd be no internet. In between me and you are warehouses of servers that are maintained by all-night staff. There's people who ran fiber optic cables. There's cooling towers. There's electrical substations. There's a ton of work that goes into the ability for me to be able to speak to you through this phone. And if you think everyone could just sit home and you can just consume on your phone, how do you even get the phone? If you have the ability, or if you have a disability, but you have, if you have a disability, but you have the ability to travel, you have the ability to do other things too. If you have the ability to be independent, meaning that you don't need someone else to wipe your ass, that means you got the ability to wipe someone else's ass as a caretaker. What would be life like if there was no one caring for those who are sick or elderly? If you have a service dog, that means you can be a dog walker. Denise was just watching some pets she saw was work. Thank God for people who watch pets. If there were no veterinarians, who would take care of your pet when it got sick? Andre, plus we just got good news from Union. Now, instead of $100 USD, we got $200 for our pension. The rest, you know it. That's awesome. Look, there's a lot of benefits of being in a union. There's some negatives. I did a whole video on that. YouTube search at Inspirational Nomad, union work versus non-union work. That's a good title. But look, inflation is here. Okay. I remember being in a union, and when we went up to $30 an hour, I said, man, how can they keep doing raises? And like one guy said, Sam, don't say that. You know, we got to have adjusted for cost of living. I said, no, I get it. But if prices always raise, if the consumer prices raise, if the pay raises, it all evens out. What does it matter? And that's what inflation is. You get a raise, and that means the prices of goods and services, the price of houses go up, the price of rent goes up. So really, at the end of the day, if you're not conscious of life, it's all a wash or there's imbalances. That's what inflation does. Now, deflation means that no one is consuming at a high level. No one's hiring at a high level. If you got low house prices, if you got low gas prices, that means you got a low economy. When gas prices went to $1 and change during the pandemic, why were they low? Everyone was in their house. When house prices in 2009 through 16, when they were low, why were they low? Economic growth was not high. Now, with that being said, are there imbalances through inflation, specifically related to artificially low interest rates and stimulus? Yeah. Look, when you grow something, you can push it too and grow it too unevenly that you got to recalculate the risk. The risk of inflation is that it creates imbalances. And even though there are raises, there's also house prices that go up at a higher rate than raises. Goods and services outprice those on the middle to lower end. And there's imbalances. No one, including the wealthiest among us, want too great of imbalances. Because if you create a structure where there's too much imbalance, then there's unrest. However, for those who have had a freeze on evictions, who got stimulus for 18 months and did nothing, and are only now getting evicted, you can't complain that society don't care about you. Because you had an opportunity to get ahead and you didn't even do anything. If you're just getting evicted now, after not having to pay rent or whatever for 2 years, or getting there's something that you have to address. Obviously, there's going to be some exceptions, but that means that you knew that you had time. You got stimulus. You were making more money on unemployment. You didn't have to pay rent, and you still wait. There's a problem there. Living in your car is not the answer to some of your problems. And that's one of my biggest concerns with the Bob Wells message. If you don't address the problem of the lack of productivity in your life, that's a problem. It doesn't mean you have to work a regular job. It doesn't mean you can't be on disability and try to figure out what, but you know, like I know, you can only cut your expenses so low, guys. Jack again, $1.99. Yes, that's the problem. Keep the word going. Thank you, brother. Thank you. I don't say these words to hurt, but to help. I empathize that any of us could be broken. I thank God for social programs. I thank God for grace. I thank God for opportunity. But look, I do rebuke when all those things are in place and someone still doesn't try to improve. Charles, $1.99 also. Amen. Preach. Thank you, Charles, man. Thank you, brother. You know, we connect on a similar mindset, man. We are in the 4th overtime tonight, man. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Jack. Andre, Denise, that's what I call behind the scenes. Someone has to do it and love it. I do not want anything else. Sometimes we do get a very, very strong smell of shit, but it is what it is. Hey, I want to tell you in life, when you're in an RV park and someone is emptying out their blank tank, guys, you might as well be in a sewage plant. Love to you, Andre. Good job. Proud of you. Thank you again, Jack, and thank you, Charles. I'll see you both. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Denise, Sam, I appreciate tough love. Well, I also appreciate empathy and compassionate love because I don't think it's that easy for everyone. I know some people have a mental, emotional, or physical disability, and I know some people, even with their disability, they just have a lack of direction. So sometimes, yeah, people just need to be pushed no matter of their ability or disability. But I also don't want to just yell at people. I don't want to just say it's easy because I empathize that it's not just easy. Look, one thing I thank God for, having a mother who struggled with obesity, having a mother that, worked minimum wage jobs, etc., is that I understand that for some people, it's just not easy. But I also understand, I always tell my mom, I said, Ma, no matter what, you always worked, whether or not other people want to see that example or not, you always tried to do something. Now, my mom always struggled with certain things like food, okay? But she was, able to maintain her weight for the most of her life. But I see in her mind sometimes she wants to do better, but it's not easy. I don't have such a rigid mindset and such tough love that I leave compassion and empathy. I don't want to be that person. And sometimes I check myself. But I also check myself because what I see in my mom is I don't want to be an enabler. And I don't want to hurt you by telling you. And that's why sometimes, even though I love Bob, I get hurt by Bob's message that some people living in the car is not the answer. It's the foundational things. And if they can't do the foundational things, go see a social worker. At least know your options. You say, well, what else can you share with me from your real life experience? Well, I got someone in my family that has a subsidized place to live, that has a food stamps, basically, and could get a better place to live, but doesn't want to follow up with their social worker. And I can't even really be in contact with them because it's just so toxic for me. It's not a judgment. So the message is not going to be able to reach everyone. But what does the scripture say? We scatter the seed. Some seed falls on fertile ground. Some seed falls in the cracks of the concrete. Remember Tupac said he was the rose that grew from the concrete. But remember, Tupac also died by not going to another level of growth. Now, he was young at 25. Things could have happened to me in my 20s, so I can't judge. But I remember when Pac first got shot in Manhattan, when the one he survived, I remember he did a Vibe article and said he gives up thug life. He was in jail. He was shot. He said, I'm going to change my life. Now, he had to do what he had to do to get out of jail, and so Suge posted bond, so he got back into a mode. But he had that fork in the road. Because remember, even if Tupac didn't get shot in Vegas, he was going back to jail because he was on camera stomping out Orlando Anderson. And he was only on bond. He wasn't out free. So what are we talking about? You have to learn in life to calculate your risk. No matter how much knowledge you have, no matter how much charisma, no matter how much talent does not allow you to take unlimited risk. Now, talent may allow you to take more risk. You may be able to shoot more threes, talk more reckless, but no one on this earth can take unlimited risk and consistently overcome the potential failure. Shout out to Trump and the trade war. Okay. You can only talk tough so long. I knew it was over for Trump when they called him the Teflon Don, because I saw John Gotti be called the Teflon Don and said the system can never get him. But he kept taking the risk and rubbing it in their face. And eventually they got him. He died in jail of cancer. No one is above calculating risk. Never forget it. David, my motivation is learn how to motivate ourselves. The secret of that is in your daily routine. Start simple by waking up early. Start simple by not taking a nap. Start simple by putting a little more effort into productivity. That will keep you busy the rest of your life. Good job, Denise and Andre. I photographed a water and a sewer treatment plant when I worked for the state. Oh, that's cool. Very cool. Okay, yeah, that's great. Good job, Denise. Andre, then you should come to the one where I work today. Take pics of the seagulls and the Canadian goose. Really? Swimming on the tanks? That's interesting. That's interesting. And Denise said, Andre, I could spend all day there. I love learning how things work. Denise, you're tapping into what makes you tick. You're on to something, Denise. Keep that fire burning. Nothing will get your fire burning like the ability to do something and time goes by quick, because that means there's something passionate about you. But you got to push yourself to get out of bed, because there's an idea of what inspires us, and then there is the physical ability to get to the idea. Faith without works is dead. Guys and girls, I'm exhausted. We're almost 2 hours into the second live feed tonight. There's only 29 people watching, but I gave it my all as if there was 29 million. Okay. All you can do is the best you can do. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank all my members. I want to thank everyone gracious on the super chats. Thank you again, Jack, Tracy, Alice, Lisa, Charles, Tracy, everyone. Thank you. I'll see you next one.